Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So where we last left off in Mutn Shujaa is at the end of Kitab al-Sayd, and what is similar to Kitab al-Sayd is al-Udhiyah. So he brought this up as a fasl at the end of this kitab, which is like a mini chapter inside of it. So he brings it up and he says, "Well, udhiyatu sunnah," and udhiyah, it comes from it's mushtaq min al-dahwa. And so you have dahwa, which is the morning. It's like the beginning of the morning. And what duha, as we have this in the Quran, that Allah swears by duha, that time in the middle of the morning where the light comes out and it starts to become bright. And so this is normally the time that someone would make the udhiyah. It would be in the time of duha, which is after they pray the salah, after they pray salat the Eid al-Adha. So after they pray the salah, then they would do the udhiyah afterwards. And this is why it's called udhiyah, because of the time that it is. That's like the linguistic connection there. And then and he also and like the basis for this from the Quran after ijma is فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So like this is the basis for it. Like when in Surah Al-Kawthar, many of the Mufassirin, they say that فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ, this is talking about Salat al-Eid. وَانْحَرْ, this is talking about the Udhiyah. And so this is kind of the basis of this from the Quran, as well as there's ijma and the fact that this is something that is sunnah, the udhiyah, or that it's mashru'. There's ijma that it's mashru'. And in the Shafi'i madhab, he says here it's sunnah. And this is the view of the Shafi'i madhab. It's sunnah for the person who's able to do it. And so the person who's he's Muslim, he's a free person, he's in his right mind, and he's able to, and he has the money for it, then in this case it is sunnah for him. And this is also like, as it's sunnah, if he does it, then it's also it counts for his family as well. So if he does the udhiyah, then this will also count for his family as well. That will let them this will yujzi for all of the people that are in his house, like the people that are in his family. And so this is one udhiyah will count for the whole family. Or if it's just one person that lives by himself, or he doesn't have family around him, then he can do this for himself as well. And so then the next thing that he brings up here, and also we should understand that this is a highly recommended sunnah, as there is khilaf whether it's obligatory or not. Like there's difference of opinion. Some people have said, not from the Shafi'i madhab, but from other madhahib, they have said that this is obligatory. The udhiyah is obligatory. And so because of that, the Shafi'is would say that this is even more important than just regular sadaqah. So this is, in essence, it's sadaqah, because we're doing this for Allah, and we're also going to give from the meat and whatnot. We're going to give this out, and so this is sadaqah, which is normally sunnah. And so but this is even more so, even to the point where Imam Shafi'i says, "La urakhisu fi tarkiha liman qadra alayha." And so he says that he doesn't la yurakhis, like he doesn't let anyone off the hook for the person to leave it, for one who is able to do it. And of course this is understood as like that it's karaha, like that this is something that's makruh to leave it for someone to do this. And so it's very important that someone tries to do this. And also the person who wants to do the udhiyah, it's sunnah for him to leave his hair, where he doesn't cut any hair, or that he doesn't not just cut any of the hair, but he doesn't pull any of the hair out or anything, or do anything that's going to take out of the hair from the beginning of the month of the Hijjah, as well as that he doesn't cut his nails and whatnot, as this comes in the sunnah of the prohibition to do this. And of course this is sunnah, like the prohibition of this is sunnah, as the essence of this udhiyah itself is sunnah. So it's not something that someone is necessarily athim if they accidentally pop something out. There's nothing upon them and whatnot. Say if they are combing and hairs come out and whatnot, as opposed to if they're in Hajj, of course, this is something else. But this is sunnah for them not to get rid of any of their hair or the dhufr, and of course to leave the difference of opinion and just always be careful in that, and that's great. And he says where sunnah, and And also for this can be done for a person for himself and also for his family. And if he has someone else do the actual deb for him, say this person doesn't know how to do the deb properly. And we talked about this in the beginning of this chapter. We talked about when you're cutting, you have to cut the hulqum and the mari, and this is like you have to cut the trachea, and also or you have to cut the trachea, which is the food pipe, and the windpipe. These must be cut, but also the two aortas, these are also should be cut. And so if someone is going to butcher the slaughtering, then they can have someone else do this, and this is better if they have someone else do this. And the person who has someone else do it, they should be there when someone else does that for them. They should be there, and of course they have the niyyah for that they're making this person a wakil to do this for them. So he's having them do that on behalf of him, and so he should do that. And this is also mentioned in the hadith as well. And also, so he says here, the next thing that Abu Shujaa is going to talk about, he says, وَيُجْزِئُ فِيهَا الْجَزَعُ مِنَ الْبَطْنِ وَالثَّنِيُّ مِنَ الْمَعْزِ وَالثَّنِيُّ مِنَ الْإِبْلِ وَالثَّنِيُّ مِنَ الْبَقَرِ. And so here he mentions what are the things that will count for the udhiyah. What are the conditions for these? And the first of the conditions is the age. And so he brings this up, and the first thing that he says here, الجذع من الضأن. الضأن is the sheep and whatnot. And so this would be like for sheep. Then they need to have the reason they call it jadha is because their teeth come out at that point in jadha, and they're adja or adja. And so this is usually when they come out is after they've finished 1 year and they're coming into their second year. So this is the jadha is a sheep that is at least 1 year old, and then he's coming into the second year, and he started his second year. So this is the first one. And the jada, like the word of this, it means like that the teeth start dropping in, and this deep, so that's where it comes from. And then he also mentions wathaniyu min al maz, and the thani here it means for the maz, which is the goat. For goats, they need to have finished 2 years and started in the third year. And so this is what they would be called a thani. And also a thani min al ibl, and the ibl is of course camels and whatnot. And so he says here, in this a thani is not 2 years, it's 5 years. So this is 5 years that he's got 5 years old, and then he started on his 6th year. So this is the condition for the ibl. For them to be acceptable, they have to at least be 5 years old and then coming in. And of course, when they're small, of course, for ibl, it takes a lot longer for them to grow up and into like the normal size. And of course, the purpose of the slaughtering is to give out the meat and to have meat of that. So of course, for them to be at an age where they're ready to give out a good portion of meat, this is important. And so he says also the next thing, وَالثَّنِيُّ مِنَ الْبَقَرِ. And so then for the baqar, this is for like the cattle, and that's of course like this is cattle that is domesticated cattle, not like something that's wild. And he says here the thani, and what the thani means is that it is gone through 2 years and then it's coming into its third year for like a cow, and this is normally when they're getting bigger. And then he mentions the next thing when he's talking about of the other conditions for the udhiyah. He says وَتُجْزِيَ الْبَدَنَةُ عَنْ سَبْعَةٍ. And so here he mentions that a bedana is a word that refers to the bigger types. And so like al-ibl wal-baqar, these would be considered a bedana. And so he says these count for 7. These count for 7 people. And this comes in the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ talked about this and mentioned that this is for 7 people from a bedana, which bedana is talking about like it comes from the word bedan, which is like a big body and whatnot. And so this is and a lot of times bedana will also refer specifically to ibl, but in like ahkam it refers also to baqarah. And he mentions after this, he says well baqaratu an sab'ah. So I guess he's here he would be talking about the first one is ibl, and the baqarah is also at the same level, and it also accounts for 7 from this. And of course, it doesn't mean that it's for 7 different people. It could be one person that has 7 different reasons that he needs to do it. And so in this case, it would count for him as well. And also, he mentions here, وَالشَّاةُ عَنْ وَاحِدٍ. And then for a shah Sheh, it encompasses the ma'z and also the dhat wal ma'z. And so this is the sheep and goats are considered sheh. And this counts for one. This is like one thing. And this also, when we talked about in Hajj, Kitab al-Hajj, we mentioned of the things when someone will have to sacrifice, there is a difference between these. This one counts for 7 and this one counts for 1 and whatnot. And so these can combine. You can combine something for Hajj, like say someone had a problem with Hajj, like say he had to cut his hair because he had lice or something of this sort. He had to do some of the muharramats. Maybe he had to wear something because he was chafing really bad. And so he would have to pay the fidya. And the fidya, how would he do this? It could be in this way. And if it was one that he had to pay, and then he combined this with like the baqarah for like the Eid, this would all count as well. Allah Ta'ala alam. And so the next thing he mentions here is he says وَأَرْبَعٌ لَا تُجْزِئُ فِي الضَّحَايَا. And so dahaya is the plural of dahiya, dahiya. And so he says that there's four that won't count for the udhiyah. Like if we're slaughtering them, they won't work. And so the first of them, he says al-awra al-bayyinu awruha. And so like the awra is someone who they have one eye that doesn't work right. And so like one of their eyes is messed up, or you'll see that there's a blemish in their eye and they can't see properly from it and whatnot, and like that there's white and whatnot in it or something. You can tell that there's something wrong with one of their eyes, and so this will not count for the udhiyah. And also, of course, if one eye doesn't work, then the udhiyah is blind. Then of course, then it would not work at all. Then the next thing that he mentions here is he says, for the second one, wal arja'u al bayinu arajuha. And so al arja is a like something that has a limp, or like that like if the animal has a limp or he's crippled in some way, one of his legs doesn't work right and he can't walk properly, then it would be considered arja. And this is for one that has this is clear, al bayinu arajuha, that there's a clear problem here. And this is even to the point that if someone were to slaughter, they got the sheep and whatnot, and then they picked him up and slammed him on the ground to a point where he was now crippled, then this would not count for him. This would not count for udhiyah. Like if the sheep stood up and then he was limping, and this time, no, we can't use him. He wouldn't count. And so of course, this is of the things that he needs to be able to walk properly. Then the next thing he says, "Wal maridatul bayyinu maraduha," and also the sick animal that is clearly sick. So if you have a sick one, then this is also the same thing. He says, and then the next one he says, "Wal ajfa'u allati dhahaba lahmuha min al-huzari." And so the ajfa is very, very skinny, and he says from the skinny ones, the reason that it's skinny is because it's dhahaba lahmuha, like that its meat has gone away, it has very minimal meat on it, and min al-huzal, from anorexia, like huzal would be anorexia. And this is an eating disorder. That it has an eating disorder where it's not eating properly, it won't eat properly. And so also like this, something that has an eating disorder, we would also say the majnoon as well. So if we have an animal that is crazy, its mind doesn't work, this also doesn't count as well. And these are of the things that are mentioned here as of blemishes that will affect the validity of the sacrifice. And then the next thing he mentions here is he says, وَيُجْزِئُ الْخَصِيُّ وَالْمَكْسُورُ الْقَرْنِ. And so al-khasi is the one that has been neutered. So a lot of times, if somebody has too many male goats and whatnot, sometimes the male ones that come out, they will neuter them or castrate them upon birth by just putting a little rubber band around it. And this is one of the things that it's still good for eating, but it's no good for other than that. And so the khasi is something that is neutered, and so this is not something that affects the lahm. This has no effect on the actual meat itself, so there's no problem with that. And the next thing that he mentions here, he says, وَيُجْزِرُ الْمَكْسُورُ الْقَرْنِ. And so the maksur al-qarn is, if say that we have a ram or whatnot, We have a sheep that has a broken qarn, which is the horn. So if the qarn is broken, like one of his horns are broken, no problem. Like this is not affecting the meat itself, and the meat is the important thing here. So there's nothing wrong with this, as opposed to something which he mentions here. He says, وَلَا يُجْزِي الْمَقْطُوعُ بَعْدِ الْأُذُنِ وَالذَّنَبِ. And so he says, but it doesn't, like you would think of like the qarn is something that, okay, we're not going to eat. And if this is okay, then what about if there's like the part of the ear is missing? Like some of the ear maybe got ripped off or something. And he says, no, the maqtu' ba'd al-udhun, if some of the ear is missing or like cut off, then in this case, it will not, la yujzi, and it will not count for that. And also he says here, with dhanab. And a dhanab is the tail. So if part of the tail is missing, then this would also not count. And this is technically like a part of the lahm. And this is why it's considered, because this is something that is eaten, and so since it is eaten, it's being taken away from what is supposed to be there. Normally this was something that would be there, and now it's been taken away. So this is a blemish that is a blemish that's going to affect its validity, because it's cutting into what would normally be used from that. And so the next thing he talks about the waqtu dhabh. Which is when is it supposed to be, when is the dhabh, when can it happen, and when does it count? And of course this is important that it has a time for it. Just like we have salah, we have a time for salah, and if we do it outside the time, then it's not proper. It's not done in its time. And for dhabh, it has a time for it, and it must be done within this time frame. He says the time, وَوَقْتُ الذَّبْحِ من وقت صلاة العيد إلى غروب الشمس من آخر أيام التشريق. And so he says here, it's from the time of the prayer of Eid. And so when he says the waqt al-Eid, it means like the time that one could possibly pray Eid and finish it after the sun has come up. The amount of time that it would take for someone to pray Eid, from this time afterwards, you can do dhabh. So say someone is out they're not going to pray Eid with the Muslim community. Maybe they're far out or something, and maybe they don't have enough people for it, or whatever it is. If they were just to wait the amount of time that it would take to pray Eid, like right after you have the sunrise, it comes up, and then you wait 15 minutes after the sunrise, or 13 minutes until the qadr al-rumh, until like a spear length comes up on the horizon. Then after this, the amount of time it would take to pray the Eid prayer, which is the two salah, like the two rakahs of salah. Then after this, if someone did dhabh, it would count. But if they did it before this time, it would not count. It would be just like any other meat that was there. So it needs to be after that time. And the Shafi'is, they didn't actually make a condition for these people to actually have prayed the prayer. They say it's just important that the time for the prayer has already elapsed for the condition for it to be accepted. So this is something that the Shafi'is went on there. And even though like maybe you would think that, okay, it has to be after the salah itself. If the salah is like in America, a lot of times they would do the salah way back like at 9 o'clock. And they could have prayed it earlier. And so they're waiting and making everybody like late to doing dhabh if they were to wait all of this time. So of course it's better for it to be earlier. And if the time period was like in the Shafi'i method, even if these people slaughtered before going to the prayer at 9 o'clock, they slaughtered at say like 7 o'clock, because this was already time for Fajr, already went and gone, and it's already time of Duha, then this time it would be okay for them. And of course, like to leave the difference of opinion is great. And so in this time goes all the way until the end. He says إلى غروب الشمس من آخر أيام التشريق. So there's three days after Eid, that these 3 days of أيام التشريق, until the sunset of the last of these the 3 days, and then this person can do the udhiyah anytime within these 3 days. And so this is the time for the udhiyah. And he also says, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ عِنْدَ الذَّبْحِ خَمْسَةُ أَشْيَاء. So he's going to talk about some of the things when somebody is doing the dhabh, the things that are mustahab. And from them, he mentions at-tasmiyah, which is saying Bismillah ar-Rahman Bismillah, And so also if and so this is like tasmiyah normally it would be understood as Bismillah, and Basmala is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So when he says tasmiyah, he means just saying Bismillah. And then also he says wassalatu ala rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then the next thing is that he says it's sunnah for someone to do is to send salah on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam by saying Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, or Allahumma salli wa sallim ala nabiyyina Muhammad, something of this sort. And this is something that while there's no there's no hadith that supports this, this is in general it's a good thing to do, and it's something that is that when somebody has a prayer and they mention the name of or when they send salah on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then this is something that is closer to being accepted from if they were not to do this. And Al-Imam Shafi'i, he was clear that he said this is a good thing for someone to do. And even though maybe we don't have a specific evidence for it, like that says this should be alongside of this, this is something that he saw that it's a good meaning, and this is a good thing to be done alongside of that. And maybe like this is almost like a surah, like this is a similar thing that someone maybe could say that this is like a bid'atul idafiyah. And this is of the things in the Shafi'i madhab that is clear that connecting these two things has no like shariah connector, but both of them are good, and so putting them together is okay in the Shafi'i madhab. And this way, wallahu ta'ala alam. And then of course, like studying what is bid'ah and what is not. This is something inside the Shafi'i madhab that there's definitely a lot of research that needs to be done. But he says here the next thing for the third thing was istiqbalul qibla. And in general, facing the qibla is something that's good to do, and so he mentions that here. With takbiru, and also saying Allahu Akbar. So after he says Bismillah, wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad, then he would, as he's facing the qibla, say Allahu Akbar. And then he would also ask Allah. The next one was du'a bil qabul, and then also asking Allah to accept this offering. Allahumma hadha minka wa ilayka fataqabbal minni, a du'a like this. And then also making sure that the knife is sharp, and also that when he cuts completely and going back and forth. So making sure he goes all the way down and back and forth without raising the knife on the animal. And this is also good for him to do. And also always treat the animal with kindness all the way into the end, to where he doesn't see the knife being sharpened and whatnot, and that he doesn't see the knife until after it's already bent over and whatnot. And so, and then the next thing that the author here mentions, he says, وَلَا يَأْكُلُ مِنَ الْأُضْحِيَةِ الْمَنْظُورَةِ وَيَأْكُلُ مِنَ الْأُضْحِيَةِ الْمُتَطَوِّعِ بِهَا. And so here he mentions, so what if somebody said لِلَّهِ عَلَيَّ أَنْ أَذْبَحَ أُضْحِيَةً. So if somebody does another, which is like that we'll talk about this, it's coming up in the next chapters. But if somebody makes an oath to Allah that they're going to slaughter an udhiyah. So in this case, this has a different ruling, because this is not something that is sunnah for them anymore. This is obligatory for them to do this. And so now that it's obligatory, it's like the obligatory rites from Hajj, that they're not allowed to eat something from if they had to slaughter something in Hajj, then they're not allowed to eat from this animal that they had to slaughter in Hajj. And so this is like that. They have to give it all away in sadaqah. And this if they were to make it obligatory on themselves, then it's like the obligatory thing in Hajj. So it takes the ruling that no one else can necessarily eat from, that he can't eat from it for himself and can't take it for himself or some of it. Which normally, he says here, وَيَأْكُلُ مِنَ الْأُضْحِيَةِ الْمُتَطَوِّعِ بِهَا. So if somebody has a regular udhiyah where they didn't make an oath to do this, in this case they can eat from it. And there's no problem with them eating from this udhiyah that is tatawwu', that is something that is not obligatory, but it's sunnah for them to do, and they can eat from this. And this is also sunnah to eat from it as well. And even to a point where some scholars had said it was like obligatory, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would be very, very careful to make sure he ate from all of the udhiyah. So this shows that he would go out of his way to at least eat something from the udhiyah. And so this is a good thing to make sure someone follows in that sunnah of eating from it somewhat. And then also and then to give some of it away as well. And this is what he's going to mention here. And he says, وَلَا يُبِيعُ مِنَ الْأُضْحِيَةِ شَيْئًا. And so, yes, we can eat from the udhiyah, but can we sell the hide? Say we wanted to sell the hide, or we have the guy who's cutting up the udhiyah for us, and so for the payment for him cutting it up and slaughtering it and cutting him up and everything, we say take a couple kilos from it. Is this permissible? No, you can't sell any of the meat of any of the udhiyah in general. You can't sell anything from it. This is for Allah, and if someone was to sell something from it, then this would be batil. Then it would not be acceptable. And so he says that there's nothing selling it. So of course I mentioned here also, like selling it is like trading some of its meat for the person cutting it up. Like giving him some meat and making this an actual transaction between you and him. If someone had someone who was doing this for free out of his goodness, and he was doing this, and then someone wanted to give him meat as a gift separate from this is something. But like for him to actually have an agreement between him that this guy is going to get some of the meat for this, no, this doesn't work, because this is a payment, and a payment is like selling. He's getting a benefit from this. And also same thing with the hide and whatnot, no selling the hide, and also the horns, no selling the horns, no selling any of the other pieces of it. Nothing gets sold from it. And so, and of course, if he had if there was a butcher, how would he pay him? He pays him with regular money. He pays him with regular money for his time, if he wanted to do it that way. And so he says, وَيُطْعِمُ الْفُقَرَاءَ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. And this is also the point of it as well. Like the main point is that this person feeds the fuqara. The fuqara are the people that don't. When these two words come together, the fuqara are the people that don't have enough. They don't have anything or like they have barely anything to even try to meet their needs. So if somebody needs, say somebody needs $100, this person has $3, or they have $10, and then the masakin are, if they needed $100 to take care of their business, or like their needs, in this case they have maybe 80 or they have 70. They have something that's going to accomplish part of it, but they don't have the rest. And these are the masakin. So these are the people that would be fed, and these are from the Muslimin. So this is also in general all of the sadaqah that we give from these acts of worship and whatnot. In this case, it would go for the Muslimin in here, and not for other than the Muslimin when it comes to the udhiyah and whatnot. And of course, and some of it is obligatory. So like to give some of it, at least some of it to some other people, this is obligatory, even if it's just a small portion of it, but at least some of it needs to be given to them, and to a point where it's considered that someone gave that to them, gave them something. And also, when somebody does give, as I mentioned this previously when we were talking about giving out food. In general, when we give out food, we give out the food in an uncooked form, and so we give it to them raw meat. And of course, like if we put it in a freezer and whatnot, great. But like we give it to them raw meat so that they can cook it whenever they want. We don't cook it for them and then feed them that. And so we give them the food as it is raw so they can choose what they want to do with that. And that's the best way for that to be done. We'll probably stop here because the adhan's about to go up. So that we can start off with the aqiqah in the next chapter at the beginning. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.